I was 7 years old when I learned that love could have conditions, not from my parents, from my sister. Alina was 3 years older than me, beautiful, confident, always the center of attention. I used to follow her everywhere, thinking that if I stayed close enough, maybe she would one day hold my hand instead of pulling it away. One afternoon, while we were alone in her room, she turned to me with a strange look in her eyes. "You know you're not really my sister, right?" she said casually, as if she were commenting on the weather. I frowned. "What do you mean? You're adopted," she replied. "Mom and Dad picked you because they felt sorry for you, but you're not blood. You don't really belong here." The word adopted felt heavy. I had heard it before, but never like that, never as a weapon. I didn't cry in front of her. I just nodded and left the room, pretending I didn't care. But that night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering what it meant to not belong in your own home. From that day on, I tried harder. I became the quiet child, the helpful one, the perfect one. I cleaned without being asked. I brought home straight A's. I never argued. I never demanded attention. I thought if I was good enough, useful enough, lovable enough, maybe she would stop reminding me that I was chosen, in a way that sounded like rejection instead of love. My parents treated me kindly. They hugged me, celebrated my birthdays, attended my school events. They told me I was their miracle, but Alina never missed a chance to draw the line between us. At family gatherings, she would introduce me as my adopted sister. She emphasized the word adopted like it was a warning label. At school, when friends asked if we were close, she would laugh. "We're not really sisters." The worst moment came on her 18th birthday. The house was filled with music, lights, and relatives. I was 16, wearing a soft blue dress Mom had picked out for me. I felt beautiful for once, included. I stepped into the living room where her friends were gathered, smiling nervously. Alina blocked my path. "Where do you think you're going?" she asked sharply. "To celebrate." I whispered. Her lips curved into a cold smile. "Get out. Adopted kids aren't allowed in family celebrations." Her voice was loud enough for everyone to hear. The room fell silent. No one defended me. No one moved. My chest tightened, and I felt smaller than I ever had before. I turned around slowly and walked back to my room, closing the door quietly behind me. That night, I didn't cry. I just realized something. If I didn't belong in her world, I would build my own. The morning after Alina's birthday party felt painfully normal. Sunlight streamed through the kitchen windows. The smell of toast and coffee filled the air. Mom hummed softly while setting the table. Dad read the newspaper, and Alina laughed. She scrolled through pictures from the party, showing them to our parents as if nothing had happened, as if she hadn't humiliated me in front of everyone. I sat quietly, stirring my tea, waiting, just waiting, for some sign, an apology, a guilty glance, anything. It never came. That was the moment something inside me shifted. I stopped waiting for her kindness. Instead, I made a promise to myself, a silent one. I would never beg for love again. If I didn't belong in her version of family, then I would create a version of myself so strong, so successful, that no one could ever push me out again. I threw myself into my studies with a new kind of focus, not the desperate kind I once had, trying to impress her. This was different. This was determination. I stayed up late solving math problems. I joined debate club to strengthen my voice. I volunteered for leadership roles at school. Every achievement became a brick in the foundation of my independence. Alina noticed. "You're trying too hard," she said one evening, leaning against my bedroom door. "No matter what you do, you'll never be real family." Her words didn't sting the way they used to. For the first time, I looked at her calmly and said nothing. Silence was powerful. When graduation day arrived, I stood at the top of my class. As my name was called for the Academic Excellence Award, the auditorium erupted in applause. I saw Mom wiping tears. Dad stood proudly, clapping harder than anyone. Elena sat with her arms crossed. A few weeks later, the letter arrived. A full scholarship to one of the most prestigious universities in the country. I held the envelope in trembling hands. This was my ticket out, not just from the house, but from the shadow I had lived in for years. At dinner that night, Mom hugged me tightly. "We always knew you were special," she whispered. Alina smirked. "Good. Maybe now she'll stop embarrassing us." Embarrassing us for succeeding. I almost laughed. 2 weeks later, I packed my bags. This time, I wasn't packing out of heartbreak. I was packing for freedom. As I stepped out of the house, I didn't look back. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't running away from rejection. I was walking towards something bigger, and I swore to myself one day I would return, not as the unwanted adopted girl, but as someone no one could ever dismiss again. It had been almost 8 years since I left home. 8 years of building, failing, learning, and rebuilding again. College had shaped me, but life after college had tested me. I started my business from a tiny rented apartment with second-hand furniture and a laptop that overheated every 2 hours. I worked through nights, survived on instant noodles, and faced rejection more times than I could count. But I never quit. Slowly, clients came, then investors, then recognition. My company grew from just me to a team of 20. We specialized in digital restructuring for traditional businesses, modern solutions for companies stuck in the past. The irony of that was never lost on me. One evening, while reviewing contracts in my glass-walled office, my phone rang. It was Mom. Her voice sounded careful. "Sweetheart, Alina is getting married." I felt a pause settle in my chest. "That's nice," I replied evenly. "There's something else." She continued. "Her fiancé's family owns a large manufacturing company. They've been struggling lately. They saw your interview online. They know you specialize in restructuring. They want to meet you." I leaned back in my chair. They want to meet me, not the unwanted adopted child, not the embarrassment, me. 2 weeks later, I walked back into the house I once felt so small in. The walls looked the same, but I didn't. Confidence has a way of changing how you stand, how you breathe. Alina was sitting beside her fiancé, Karim. He stood when I entered and offered his hand politely. "I've heard impressive things about you," he said sincerely. I smiled. "I hope they're true." Alina's smile was tight, almost forced. Dinner was formal. Karim's parents explained their company's decline. Outdated systems, poor online presence, declining profits. I listened carefully, asking sharp but respectful questions. When it was my turn to speak, I outlined a clear strategy: digital transformation, structural changes, new market positioning. The room grew quiet, not from rejection, but from attention. They were impressed. For the first time in my life, Alina looked at me not with superiority but uncertainty. After dinner, she cornered me near the hallway. "So this is what you've become?" she asked quietly. "This is what I built," I replied. She folded her arms. "Don't forget where you came from." I met her gaze steadily. "I came from here," I said softly, "from the house where you told me I didn't belong." She had no answer. The next morning, Karim's father called. They wanted a formal partnership, and if the deal went through, I wouldn't just be helping their company. I would be overseeing it, which meant Alina would be reporting to me. For the first time, life wasn't punishing me for being adopted. It was rewarding me for surviving it. Here is Chapter 4 expanded to around 450 words, concluding the story with emotional depth and sweet revenge. Chapter 4: Sweet revenge, the contracts were finalized 3 months later. Everything was professional, transparent, legal. I didn't manipulate anything or take advantage of anyone. I didn't need to. Success had already shifted the balance. On the morning of the first official board meeting, I walked into Kareem's family company headquarters wearing a tailored charcoal suit and quiet confidence. The same girl who had once been told to get out now entered through the front doors as the strategic director overseeing restructuring. The boardroom was sleek, modern, but tense. Alina sat halfway down the table, flipping through printed documents she barely understood. When I entered, conversations paused. Miss Sarah will now be leading the restructuring process. Kareem's father announced formally, Miss Sarah, not adopted sister, not unwanted child, just my name, my title, my earned authority. I nodded politely and began presenting the roadmap: digital expansion, cost restructuring, leadership reassignment. Every word was steady, controlled, professional. Alina avoided eye contact. Over the next several months, the transformation began. Systems improved, profits stabilized. Employees who had once feared layoffs found renewed stability under smarter management. I treated Alina the same way I treated everyone else, fairly. No special treatment, no public embarrassment, no revenge tactics, but I also didn't soften my standards. When her department missed deadlines, I addressed it directly. When her proposals lacked data, I asked for revisions. No cruelty, just accountability. One evening, after a long strategy session, she stayed behind. The room was quiet once everyone left. I owe you an apology, she said, her voice no longer sharp but fragile. I waited. I was jealous, she admitted. Mom and Dad chose you. They loved you so openly. I felt replaced. The words stunned me more than any insult she had ever thrown. I thought if I reminded you that you weren't blood, I'd feel more secure. She continued, but you were always stronger than me. Tears filled her eyes. For years I had imagined this moment, her regret, her realization. But standing there, I didn't feel triumph. I felt peace. You hurt me, I said gently. More than you'll ever know. She nodded. But I don't hate you. I added. Her eyes widened slightly. Hate would mean you still control my emotions. You don't. That was the real revenge, not making her feel small, not humiliating her in return, but rising so high that her rejection no longer defined me. Weeks later, at a quiet family dinner, Alina raised her glass to my sister. She said clearly, the strongest woman I know. No hesitation, no cruel emphasis, just sister. And this time, when I looked around the table, I didn't feel like an outsider. I felt chosen, not by blood, but by strength, and that made all the difference.